Achraf Hakimi, you are a bad, bad man. Morocco with the great escape, and they beat Spain. Spain on a penalty shootout to reach the quarterfinals of the World Cup. So much to discuss. Incredible scenes. Luis Enrique and co are out. Luis Miguel Echegaray here, and me, ESPN FC Daily. K. Murray will join us later in the week, we promise. But we have Sam Marsden, obviously, joining us from Spain. And Craig Burley joined us just in time. Hopefully we'll get to hear some moves as well. And Gab Marcotti. Where do we begin? Let's go with Gab Marcotti first, because he was yelling so much at the end of this game. Gab, reactions. Morocco are through. Spain. Hasta mañana.
It's a tremendous story, Alami. I think Morocco, we saw this was a talented team. And speaking you here from Doha, as you've no doubt read, they've kind of been adopted by pretty much everybody in the Arabic world. I think a lot of people in Africa as well pushing them on. And they view this as a giant killing. I want to give a shout out to Sofiane Amrabat. I thought in terms of a midfield performance, that might have been, for that position in central midfield, dealing with those three guys, that might have been the single best individual midfield performance that we've seen in this World Cup. But I gotta say, man, Luis Enrique, I am seriously conflicted because I love the fact that he's different, that he does things differently. I find him so immensely likable. He's creative. He's not part of the dung heap of gutless conformity. But then sometimes I see stuff like this and I say, why do you have to be so weird? Why do you have to be so different? Why do we have to have Sarabia and Soler as the first penalty takers? Why do I have to wait till the end to see Ansu Fati come on? And this way of, or Morata as well from the bench. This way of playing it, taking it to an extreme. Again, I say there's a thin line between genius and folly. And man, he straddles it.
Llorente as right back as well. I want all the opinions from the boys on the same question. Craig Burley, give me your thoughts on this one. Spain losing, and I believe the last three of its 4 World Cup shootouts, they've gone out. Spain, the 5th FIFA World Cup penalty shootout, 1 out of 3 entering today. Ties Argentina for most all-time. Morocco took care of business. Initial reactions, Craig?
Well, I knew when Morocco beat us at the 98 World Cup, I knew they were onto something. They were building momentum. That was just the start of it for them. And sort of here they are, 4 years later. Yeah, I echo Gab's words. Amrabat in there, the Fiorentina midfielder, was just amazing. They had so much energy. They have got quality. Yeah, it's bits and pieces and now and again on the counter attack. But there's a reason no outfield player has actually scored against them in this tournament thus far. The only goal they've conceded has been an own goal. They are, I don't want to be cliched by putting their bodies on the line and all that, but they're just defending very, very well as individuals in a team. And I think if you saw Saiss at the end, who was excellent again, he's on sort of one leg. And so, yeah, you cannot deny Morocco for sure. Spain, Luis Enrique's been through so much on a personal level, but on a football parlance, it is so frustrating to watch this Spanish side at times because, yeah, when Williams come on, they had the pace to get in behind and they started putting crosses in the box because they had a front man that could attack it. But boy, is there something against when you're finding it difficult to break a team down and they're so deep that what the hell is wrong with making a couple of yards at 20, 25, 30 yards and working the goalkeeper and striking the ball from the edge of the box and working those 20, 25-yard shots from around the box? There's nothing wrong with that when the other thing is not working. And I get so frustrated, and you can look at the stats, particularly in 90 minutes, and look at how many times the Spanish try to work it around the 18-yard box and get a strike away. I think it might have been once. I think it might have been Rodri from 40 yards. And so, just one. It's so frustrating. And I understand what Spain are all about. And I understand that they want to play a certain way. But when that certain way is not working, we've seen so many shots from outside the box at this World Cup that have been deflected and You know, they've outdone goalkeepers, and yet Spain just refuse to do that. They want to walk it in. It's so frustrating, and I think ultimately that's part of the mechanism of the game that's cost them in this one today.
Yeah, I can't agree with you anymore. Sometimes the plan A for Luis Enrique is just not enough, and it was proven today. Sam Marsden, you cover Barcelona for ESPN a lot, the Spanish side of things. You live there, you know this team, you know the culture. What do you think went wrong today, aside from obviously understanding that sometimes this Spain side need more than just a plan A? What did you see today? And I guess, because obviously they also lost in the group stages, I guess overall, what did you make of the Spanish side and this loss today? As Morocco, by the way, the first team in the quarterfinals of the World Cup since Ghana in 2010. What do you make of Spain?
Yeah, a disappointing campaign for Spain, really, when you go back to that 7-0 win over Costa Rica and everything that sort of generated, the expectations that generated. They've gone into the tournament and, people are saying, they're going to have the possession, but do they have someone who can score goals? Are they going to be able to score goals? And that almost sort of, set them off on the wrong foot in hindsight. Obviously, against Germany, they were okay, but then against Japan, they really took their foot off the gas once they went 1-0 up, and they had no clue once they went 2-1 down to turn that game around. And then today it was a similar story. They just couldn't break down Morocco, who I think Gab and Craig have covered it well. Amrabat was fantastic, Saiss at the end on one leg. Fantastic story for the tournament, and much needed, I think, because I think until this game, I think the round of 16 had perhaps been a little bit predictable. The South American and the European sides winning, and this Morocco story is great. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of fallback on Luis Enrique, especially now. He's always had sort of a love-hate relationship with the press here. And coming back to what Gab says about him just being, I don't know if it's him being weird or not. I just think he's a little bit, I don't know if he would agree with this, but he can be a little bit stubborn at times. He's got his ideas, and no matter how many sort of, alternatives are offered to him or alternatives there are. I mean, as Craig says, coming into, the last 20 minutes of the game today, extra time, and they just did not try their luck. That one Rodri shot was probably one when they shouldn't have tried their luck as well, because he was so far out. And I mean, it comes back to as well what Luis Enrique was speaking about yesterday when he was so impassioned about, this style and the criticism they'd had after the Japan game. And it was again their downfall. And I think it could well be the end of Luis Enrique with Spain. I don't know if he'll do a tournament cycle. I don't know if he'll want to. It feels a little bit like a step back, really, because I think at the Euros, when they reached the semis, and even though they lost to Italy, they were so good in that semi-final. And, they've had not 2 years, but another 18 months since then, of establishing themselves with, Pedri, Gavi, these young players coming through. And I think they were expected quietly to go better at the World Cup than they have done. So I'm not sure what it will mean for Luis Enrique for the future. I think he could well decide that maybe this is the end of his time with the national team.
Gab, what do you think on that? What do you think about Luis Enrique's fate after this?
Like I say, he's such an unique individual. When I talk about we're fascinated, those of us who cover the game as journalists, we don't just sit there and cover people who win, right? And praise those guys. We cover people who are different, who are creative, who bring something else to the table. And Luis Enrique is undoubtedly like that. I mean, look what happened when he took time off after Barcelona with his triathlons, the marathon in the desert, and then he comes back and then he does his Twitch, and he's got that whole creative side to him, and he plays great football. I mean, Sam's right that, while obviously I believe Italy deserved to win Euro 2020, I thought Spain deserved to win that semifinal. But you can't have so many continuous close calls when you have better players. The bottom line is, in this tournament, they played 4 games, and the only team that they beat was Costa Rica, 7-0. And Costa Rica, I think, will have a lot of dysfunction about them. You go back to the Euros, they nearly got knocked out by Switzerland on penalty kicks. Let's not forget that either. So I'm not sure that there is a learning curve there. I think a lot's going to depend actually on what Luis Enrique wants to do, because he doesn't need this, right? He is the kind of guy, I know people who worked with him way back when he was at Rome. I know people who've known him, who've played with him, and they'll tell you he doesn't need this. He does it if he enjoys it. And if he says, this isn't really fun anymore, I'm going to go and go run in the desert again like I've done before, or get on my bike and not get off it for a month. this is the kind of stuff he's want to do, or maybe just take a break. Whether the Spanish FA decide it's time for a change, I think that's a different matter. I think there'll be probably some pressure for that. I would hope that they would also see that if Luis Enrique stays and if he's motivated and if he's willing to not change, but evolve, right? We all evolve a little bit and give another go. I think that would be great. But, equally, I think ultimately it's going to be down to him and what he wants to do.
Before I hear from Craig Burley's on Luis Enrique, Gab, I know you have to go. So Gab Marcotti, thank you so much, my friend. Have a nice rest of your evening, and we'll see you again on ESPN FC Daily.
Sounds good, boys.
All right, arrivederci. Craig, let's put a wrap here on Luis Enrique. What do you make of it? Because Spain obviously is a side that is so dependent on philosophy and strategy, but there's plenty of managerial talent there for España. Do you see Luis Enrique, just like Gab said, really it's up to him. If he's had enough, he's had enough. What do you think?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Luis, I mean, he's had so much personal heartache with the loss of his daughter. And I think whilst this will hurt, and he clearly would want to have delivered this from a professional perspective, I think from a perspective in life and a bigger picture, there are greater things to worry about. That being said, the Spanish public will obviously see it slightly differently. I think, look, when you decide to do it your own way, and by that I mean, and every manager does, I suppose, but there was a clear ethic here of not necessarily picking players who were playing or in form. If you look at, for example, Jordi Alba hasn't always played for Barcelona. Young Baldi's played. Ferran Torres hasn't always played. Ansu Fati, lack of game time here. Asensio, again, lack of game time at Real Madrid, but players that he said, I trust them and they've done it for me before. He took centre-halves with him, but yet played a midfielder and Rodri at centre-back. He left people at home like Gerard Moreno and others who he might have been able to call upon if they were looking for a scrappy goal. And so all these things, they were his decisions, and ultimately, this squad has sort of cost him. So there's going to be plenty of questions there. They played some nice stuff at times, and we got a bit excited, and I think everybody did when we saw that Costa Rica game and just how they took them apart. But maybe that was a little bit of a false dawn. The Japan game I understand to an extent, because it looked to all and sundries that it wasn't going to be an issue for them in terms of qualification until it was, and when he'd made all those changes, and it was almost like they couldn't switch it back on again. So I sensed that Luis, and I don't know this, I sensed that Luis Enrique might take this decision before the Spanish FA does have to make one itself, and it hasn't worked for them. They were looking really good to an extent, but they've sorely come undone in this game.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.